Time to jump into the magical world of Hogwarts.
But not just any ordinary spell or charm.
We're going deep into that legendary rivalry between Gryffindor and Slytherin.
You guys have given us so much to work with.
Yeah.
Books, articles, fan theories.
I mean, a real treasure trove to unpack here.
Clearly, you all are as fascinated by this clash as I am.
Absolutely. What makes it so different from, like, your typical school rivalry is that Gryffindor and Slytherin, they really represent these totally different approaches to life.
Magic, really?
Yeah, to, like, what it even means to be a witch or a wizard.
You got it.
And it feels like this question is woven into, like, the very fabric of the wizarding world.
Exactly.
And let's be honest, have we not all secretly wondered where the Sorting Hat would put us?
100%.
So our mission today is to break down each house.
Right.
What makes them tick, you know?
Yeah.
See how those values play out in the books?
Yeah.
And maybe even figure out if these two houses that seem so opposed could actually ever find some common ground.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We're diving into whether Gryffindor and Slytherin can coexist by looking at those iconic wizards and witches who seem to embody traits from both houses.
I mean, take Dumbledore.
Okay.
The ultimate wise and powerful Gryffindor.
Right.
But he's also shown us that he's capable of some serious Slytherin-level strategy.
Yeah.
When he needs it.
When he needs to be.
Exactly.
That is a perfect example of how these lines can get blurred.
Totally.
Then you've got Snape, a Slytherin, but driven by this profound love
and loyalty
that ultimately leads him to make the ultimate sacrifice.
Right.
Right away, we see that these houses can't just be labeled as good versus evil.
It's so much more complex.
So much
than that.
Yeah.
It's like the Sorting Hat itself is acknowledging this whole complexity when it hesitates.
Yes.
While sorting Harry,
it takes its time.
It senses the bravery.
Oh, yeah.
That screams Gryffindor.
Classic Gryffindor.
But also that ambition that could have just as easily put him in Slytherin.
Easily.
That moment right at the beginning of Harry's whole journey really sets the stage.
It does.
For everything that follows.
Yes.
It tells us that human nature is complex and that even opposing values can exist within one person.
They can.
So let's unpack each house.
Okay.
Starting with Gryffindor.
All right.
What comes to mind when you think about those core values? Bravery, chivalry, daring.
Well, we see those values embodied over and over in characters like Harry, Ron, Hermione.
Yeah.
Think about Harry facing Quirrell
right.
to protect that Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, in the very first book.
That's a pure act of Gryffindor courage.
It really is.
Absolutely.
And Ron facing his absolute terror of spiders.
Oh, yeah.
To stand by his friend in the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
That's loyalty shining through.
And got it.
Even when he's completely scared.
Even when he is terrified.
And Hermione constantly pushing boundaries.
Yes.
In her pursuit of knowledge and justice.
Absolutely.
That shows us that intellect and courage can be these powerful allies.
It's a reminder that bravery takes many forms.
Totally.
Many forms.
Okay, now let's cross the Great Hall over to Slytherin.
Okay.
They definitely get a bad rap.
Yeah, they do.
Often portrayed as, like, the villains.
Right.
But is it really that simple?
I would argue it's far more nuanced than that.
Interesting.
We tend to associate Slytherin with ambition, cunning, resourcefulness, determination.
Right.
But are those qualities inherently bad?
That's a good question.
Or can they be used for good?
Yeah.
Just as easily as for evil.
This is where things get really interesting. The books give us so many examples that challenge that.
Right.
Slytherin equals evil stereotype.
Yeah, the easy stereotype.
Snape, for instance.
Okay.
He might be the most complex and misunderstood character
possibly
in the whole series.
I think so.
His actions are driven by this love for Lily.
Yeah.
That runs so deep that he ultimately sacrifices himself to protect her son.
He does.
Snape embodies the complexity of Slytherin.
Yes, absolutely.
His ambition and cunning are undeniable.
Oh, yeah.
But they're ultimately channeled toward this selfless goal.
Yeah.
Even Slughorn, with his fondness for surrounding himself with, quote, winners.
Winners, yeah.
He shows bravery in that final battle.
Yes, he does.
Fighting alongside everyone else
to
defend Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Draco.
Oh, Draco.
He might start out as this bully,
right?
Grappling with prejudice and this sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
But we see him struggle internally with this dark path that he's forced onto.
He doesn't really have a choice.
It's like he represents that inner conflict that so many Slytherins might face. Trying to live up to expectations. While also wrestling with their own developing sense of morality.
Absolutely.
And his story challenges us to think about the pressures and complexities of growing up in a world where your choices aren't always clear-cut.
Aren't always so easy.
But where does this deep animosity between these houses even come from? Is it just personalities clashing in the common rooms, or does it go deeper?
I think it goes much deeper.
Let's trace it back to the very foundation of Hogwarts.
To the beginning.
To the founders themselves.
Co-founders, Godric
Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin.
Salazar Slytherin.
These two were best friends.
Right.
United in their vision for this magical school. But something drove them apart.
Something.
Their core beliefs clashed.
Yeah.
And ultimately, those differences led to their legendary falling out.
It's legendary.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
Godric believed that courage and a noble heart were like the defining qualities of a great wizard.
Yeah.
Essentially, the Gryffindor way.
The Gryffindor way.
And in contrast, Salazar valued ambition and cunning.
Right.
And even placed a strong emphasis on pure blood heritage.
Pure blood.
Which basically means a lineage free of Muggle or non-magical ancestry.
Right.
This clash of ideologies wasn't exactly a recipe for lasting harmony.
No, it was not.
So this ancient feud between the founders fuels the rivalry that we see.
It does, to this day.
To this day.
Between their houses.
Between Gryffindor and Slytherin.
But the question remains, can these fundamentally different values, these contrasting Gryffindor and Slytherin approaches to life
and magic,
actually coexist?
Can they coexist?
Yeah.
Or even complement each other?
Now that's where things get truly thought-provoking.
Because if we look closely at the stories, we see instances where characters seem to embody a blend of both sets of traits. Again, Dumbledore's a perfect example.
He keeps coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
He's wise.
He's wise.
Powerful wizard.
Powerful.
But he's also capable of some seriously cunning.
He is.
Even manipulative tactics when he deems it necessary.
He is.
Remember his plan with Snape in Half-Blood Prince? That's not your typical straightforward Gryffindor approach.
No, that's not straightforward at all.
Right.
No, it's not.
It takes a certain level of strategic thinking.
Yeah.
A Slytherin-esque ability to plan and maneuver to pull something like that off.
You need that Slytherin edge.
And on the flip side, think about Harry himself.
Okay.
He's constantly facing danger head-on.
Yeah.
Showing classic Gryffindor courage.
Classic Gryffindor.
But he also displays a Slytherin-like resourcefulness in moments of crisis.
When he's really under pressure.
Like during the Triwizard Tournament.
Yes.
He's using his wits.
Right.
Just as much as his bravery to survive.
Exactly.
He's figuring out clues.
Yeah.
Strategizing.
He's adapting.
Adapting to each challenge.
Yeah.
It's like the ideal wizard.
Right.
The one best equipped to face the complexities of the world.
Yeah.
Might actually need a balance of both.
They might?
Gryffindor and Slytherin qualities.
They might need both.
So maybe it's not about choosing one over the other.
Yeah, me know.
But rather recognizing the strength.
The strength,
in both approaches.
Exactly.
Bravery without a bit of Slytherin strategy can become reckless.
It can.
And ambition, unchecked by Gryffindor's moral compass.
Oh, yeah.
Can be dangerous.
Very dangerous. You've hit the nail on the head.
So it's all about finding the balance.
It is.
Recognizing that these seemingly opposite values can actually work together to make us stronger, more adaptable, and ultimately more successful.
And more successful.
In navigating the challenges life throws at us.
That's it. It's really fascinating to consider how these contrasting values, play out in different situations.
Right.
Let's look at some specific moments in the books where Gryffindor and Slytherin traits maybe clash or even unexpectedly converge.
Okay, I love this because it's one thing to talk about bravery and ambition.
Yeah.
In the abstract.
In theory.
But seeing it actually play out in the story.
Right.
With all the drama and the high stakes.
Right.
That's what brings it to life.
That's what makes it real.
Right.
One of the most striking examples happens in Prisoner of Azkaban.
Okay.
Remember when Harry receives the firebolt?
Oh, yeah.
That amazing top-of-the-line broomstick?
Like every kid reading that chapter was like,
I know.
I want one of those.
Totally.
Right.
But then Hermione, driven by that Gryffindor sense of caution and concern for Harry's safety. Yeah.
She reports the broom to Professor McGonagall.
Which leads to it being confiscated.
Yes.
And like a whole battery of tests.
That's a whole thing.
Talk about a mood killer.
I know.
But in Hermione's defense, she genuinely thought
she did
that Sirius Black, who supposedly sent it, was a real threat to Harry's life.
A serious threat.
Yeah.
Her actions were totally aligned with Gryffindor values.
Right.
Wanting to protect her friend at all costs.
At all costs.
But from Harry's perspective, it felt like an overreaction.
Right.
A frustrating obstacle to his love of Quidditch.
Totally.
It's a classic clash of
those
Gryffindor approaches.
Right.
Hermione's cautious rule-following bravery versus Harry's more impulsive risk-taking kind of bravery.
Yes.
And it highlights a potential blind spot for Gryffindors.
Interesting.
Sometimes that unwavering courage, that instinct to jump into action, it can have some unintended consequences.
A little dash of Slytherin strategy.
Okay.
And forethought might have been helpful there.
Like thinking things through a little more before leaping into the unknown.
A little bit more.
That's definitely a lesson Harry learns.
It is.
Or at least keeps getting reminded of.
He does.
Throughout the series.
Throughout the books.
And then there's the whole conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Between Ron and Hermione over Scabbers and Crookshanks.
Scabbers and Crookshanks.
I mean, Crookshanks definitely had a taste for Scabbers.
Yeah. Hermione's cat.
Always lurking.
Always lurking.
Ready to pounce.
Right.
That tension created a real rift.
Yeah, it did.
Between those two.
Yeah.
Ron, fiercely loyal to his pet.
Yes.
Absolutely convinced that Crookshanks had eaten Scabbers.
Of course.
And Hermione, as always, wanted proof.
Yeah.
Relying on logic and evidence.
The evidence.
Rather than jumping to conclusion.
Right.
Again, we see those core values in action.
There they are.
Ron's Gryffindor loyalty.
Oh, yes.
And his very emotional response. Versus Hermione's need for that more rational evidence-based Slytherin approach.
Right.
And in this case, it turns out Ron's intuition was right.
He was right.
Scabbers was not a rat at all.
Not at all.
But Peter Pettigrew, in disguise.
In disguise.
Mind blown.
I know.
But that's a whole other deep dive.
A whole other topic.
Right.
But what's important here is that sometimes that Gryffindor gut instinct, that unwavering loyalty to your friends, can be more valuable than even the most logical Slytherin deduction.
So it's not always about outsmarting or outmaneuvering.
Maybe not.
Sometimes it's about trusting your heart.
Yes.
Your intuition.
Your intuition.
Those bonds of friendship.
Exactly.
It reminds us that both approaches.
Right.
That the Gryffindor intuitive leap.
Yeah.
And that Slytherin calculated analysis.
Yeah.
They both have their strengths.
They do.
And their limitations.
Yeah.
But what about those moments? When Gryffindors and Slytherins actually work together? When those seemingly opposite values somehow combine.
Yeah.
To create something even greater.
Something even better.
What comes to mind for you?
Well, think about Dumbledore's army.
Okay.
Order of the Phoenix.
Okay.
You've got Gryffindors, like Harry,
Yeah.
Ron, and Hermione leading the charge.
Yeah.
Teaching their fellow students defensive spells in secret.
Right.
But they recruit members from other houses, too, including Slytherins.
That's right.
Neville, Luna, Cho Chang.
Yeah.
They all band together
to
oppose Umbridge and her tyrannical rule.
Right.
It's a powerful example of how a shared goal, a common enemy, can bridge even the deepest divides. And what's interesting is even within Dumbledore's army, we see those different values complementing each other.
Right, like they understand that combining their strengths gives them a better chance at succeeding.
A much better chance.
Right.
Harry's Gryffindor courage and leadership inspire others.
Yeah.
While Hermione's strategic thinking and organizational skills, those Slytherin strengths, keep the group functioning.
Yeah.
And isn't that, in a way, what we all strive for in life?
It is.
To find those people whose talents and perspectives complement our own.
Totally.
Even if they see the world a little differently.
Yes.
It's a beautiful reminder that our differences when we approach them with understanding and respect, can be a source of strength and innovation.
Absolutely.
So circling back to our original question, can these houses, these contrasting values of Gryffindor and Slytherin, ever truly be reconciled?
Yeah, can they?
Well, if we look at the Harry Potter series as like a microcosm of the wider world, the answer, I believe, is yes.
Okay.
Not only can they be reconciled, but their reconciliation, their ability to see past their differences and work together might be essential for achieving true greatness and overcoming those challenges that threaten to divide us.
That's a powerful takeaway. Yeah. Because it reminds us that even in this world of magic and fantasy, the human element city, the complexity of our relationships, and how we choose to approach those differences. Yeah. It's ultimately what matters most.
It is.
A magical lesson indeed.
Indeed.
And it's one we can all apply to our own lives.
I think so.
Recognizing that embracing those differences, understanding where other people are coming from, can lead to incredible things.
It can.
We've had quite a journey.
We have.
Exploring these contrasting values.
We have.
But there's one more fascinating question we need to tackle.
Right.
One that takes us into the realm of what if?
What if?
What if Harry Potter, our brave Gryffindor hero, had been sorted into Slytherin instead?
Oh.
All right, get ready for a mind-bending thought experiment. We've got all this material to consider this one giant what if.
A giant one.
What if Harry Potter, the boy who lived destined to be the Gryffindor hero, had been sorted into Slytherin instead?
It's a question that has captivated fans for years. It makes us think about how much our circumstances really shape us. And the impact of the people around us.
And remember how Harry walks into that sorting ceremony? Almost expecting to be a Slytherin? I mean, his whole childhood with the Dursleys was about being the outsider.
The outsider,
And everyone keeps comparing him to Voldemort. Who is, of course, a Slytherin.
Of course.
And it really says a lot about Harry's character.
It does.
That even after years of that kind of treatment, he still voices that desire to be in Gryffindor.
He does.
It shows that deep down, he already valued courage and fairness.
Yeah, he did.
Even if he hadn't fully realized it.
Yeah.
But imagine if the Sorting Hat had listened to Harry's initial fear. Had sensed that ambition and potential for darkness and declared Slytherin.
Slytherin.
How do you think things would have played out?
Well, the most immediate change, I think, would be the people surrounding Harry. Instead of those deep bonds with Ron and Hermione, he might have found himself navigating the complex dynamics of the Slytherin house. Possibly even becoming close with Draco Malfoy. And his gang.
A totally different set of influences.
Okay. It's almost impossible to predict how those relationships would unfolded. But remember Slytherin. It's not just a big block of evil. Even within that house, there's a spectrum of personalities and motivations.
That's true.
While some, like Malfoy, seem to embrace prejudice and cruelty, others, like Snape, operate with this hidden depth and complexity. It's fascinating to consider how someone like Snape might have interacted with a Slytherin Harry. Would he have become a mentor? A guide who understands Harry's darker impulses, but also steers him towards a more honorable path.
And picture Harry's rivalry with Draco. Taking on this whole new dimension. Both ambitious. Both vying for recognition, but with possibly totally different values driving them. Do you think their rivalry would have become more intense, or would it have played out differently?
That's a great question. On the one hand, their competition might have escalated, fueled by that Slytherin ambition and thirst for power. But on the other hand, imagine Harry, with his inherent sense of justice, challenging those pure-blood supremacist views that Draco was raised with. Their clashes could have been epic.
They could have.
Each trying to sway the other to their side. It's fascinating to think about how Harry's presence could have shifted the dynamics within Slytherin. He might have been a catalyst for change, challenging those prejudices and assumptions that have defined the house for centuries.
It's like Harry, who was the unwanted outsider in the Dursley household, becomes this unexpected force for good within the most tradition-bound, often ostracized house at Hogwarts.
I love that.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
But hold on. If Harry had been a Slytherin, would his courage and heroism have been celebrated the same way?
Celebrated the same way.
They were in Gryffindor.
Right?
Or would those qualities have been viewed differently?
Would they have been?
Maybe even stifled.
It's a great point.
Right.
Gryffindor almost seems to have a monopoly.
Yeah, they do.
On heroism in the wizarding world.
Yeah.
But true courage can manifest anywhere.
Absolutely.
Maybe Slytherin Harry would have shown us a different kind of bravery.
Yeah.
A cunning and strategic way of facing danger.
Right.
And fighting for what's right.
And we have to ask.
Yeah.
Would a Slytherin Harry have been tempted?
Tempted.
By that allure of power and prestige.
Allure.
That surrounded him.
Yeah.
In that house.
Yeah.
Would he have succumbed to the darkness?
Succumbed to that darkness.
That Voldemort so desperately wanted him to embrace.
That's the question that looms. Because the prophecy states that neither can live while the other survives.
Right.
Would that prophecy even have happened?
That's right.
If Harry had been a Slytherin?
Whoa, you're right.
Yeah.
Would Professor Trelawney have even overheard that conversation between Snape and Voldemort?
Right.
If Harry hadn't been marked as the chosen one?
Right.
The Gryffindor destined to face him?
The Gryffindor.
Would Dumbledore have taken the same steps to protect him?
That's a great point.
If the prophecy never happened? If Harry wasn't labeled as Voldemort's equal?
Yeah.
From the start.
Right from the start.
The entire course of events.
The entire story.
Could have been radically different.
Totally different.
Voldemort might have risen to power unchallenged.
He might have.
Or maybe a Slytherin Harry.
Right.
With his understanding of that house's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Might have been the only one.
The only one.
Who could stop him.
That's amazing.
So as we wrap up our deep dive.
Yes.
We're left with this question.
Okay.
If Harry had been a Slytherin.
Yes.
How might his journey and the fate of the entire wizarding world.
The fate of everything.
Have been different.
It's a big question.
Would he have made different choices?
Right.
Forged different alliances?
It's an open ending.
It is.
A possibility that really invites us to think creatively and explore those uncharted paths in our imaginations.
Because sometimes the most satisfying answers,
I think so,
are the ones we discover ourselves.
The ones we come up with.
And maybe, just maybe, in some alternate universe,
maybe
another version of this story is unfolding right now.
Right now.
A story where Harry Potter, the Slytherin hero,
faces his own challenges
and forges his own path to greatness.
That's a great image.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a story.
Maybe.
Worth exploring in another deep dive.
Until then, keep questioning.
Yeah.
Keep exploring. Keep exploring.
And never underestimate the power of a good what if.
Absolutely. And remember, whether you're a Gryffindor, a Slytherin,
or somewhere in between.
Yeah. The magic of the Harry Potter world,
I agree,
lies in its ability to make us think.
Yes.
Challenge our assumptions.
Challenge those assumptions.
And to remind us that the choices we make define who we become.
That's the important part. Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. You know, we've been getting tons of comments and messages from you guys asking us to look at this. Like, why are Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff kind of treated like the GV squad in Harry Potter?
It's true. And it's interesting how the books and movies themselves kind of set that up, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Right from the start. It's like Harry walks into the Great Hall and bam, it's Gryffindor versus Slytherin.
Right. The Sorting Hat barely mentions the other two.
Exactly. It's like you're either brave and bold or you're ambitious and cunning. What about all those other qualities?
Like, are you telling me there were any no ambitious Ravenclaws at Hogwarts?
Right. Or rule-breaking Hufflepuffs? Come on!
Exactly. It's this weird narrative choice, you know? Like, it makes for a good story, this whole chosen one versus the Dark Lord thing.
Totally. But it does mean a lot of characters who are super important get kind of sidelined.
For sure.
Especially when you think about how much of the plot depends on them, you know?
Oh, totally. Like, take Luna Lovegood, for instance. She's a Ravenclaw, right? But she's not your typical, like, super studious type. She's got her own unique way of seeing things.
Absolutely.
And people write her off as weird or whatever.
People underestimate her all the time.
Exactly. But she's brilliant in her own way. Remember that whole scene in Order of the Phoenix?
Which one?
When Harry needs to get to the Ministry of Magic? Like, desperately.
Oh, right, right.
And nobody knows how to get there except Luna, because...
She's the only one who understands the Thestrals. Because most people can't even see them.
Exactly. That whole scene, that's a turning point in the book.
And
it hinges on Luna's unique knowledge.
Absolutely. Without her, who knows how things would have turned out.
Right. So she gets dismissed as eccentric or whatever.
But she's actually incredibly perceptive and intelligent.
Right. It's almost like she's more in tune with the magical world because she's not bound by conventional thinking, you know?
That's a great point. It makes you think, like, how often do we miss out on brilliance because it doesn't look the way we expect it to?
Exactly. It's like judging a book by its cover. Speaking of misjudged, though, let's talk about Cedric Diggory.
Our Hufflepuff champion.
Right. He's like the embodiment of everything Hufflepuff stands for. Loyal, fair, hardworking.
Totally.
And then, think about how he acts in the Triwizard Tournament. He's competing against Harry, but he still helps him.
Right. He even tells Harry about the egg clue.
Exactly. Can you imagine Draco Malfoy doing that?
Not a chance.
No way.
Yeah.
So you've got Cedric, this good guy, total champion, even in defeat. But his story is tragic, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Heartbreaking.
And it kind of makes you think, like, those Hufflepuff traits, kindness, dedication, they're seen as less exciting, I guess.
Less glamorous, maybe?
Yeah, glamorous. That's it. It's like we're so drawn to the Gryffindor daring or the Slytherin ambition that we miss the importance of those other qualities.
It's true. We love the flashy stuff, but those quieter strengths, they're what really hold things together a lot of the time.
Totally. Like, we're so busy watching the big showdown, we don't notice the person who was quietly making sure everything was working behind the scenes, you know?
I see what you mean. And it's not just in the magical world either. It's like that in real life, too. Think about the people you admire. Are you drawn to the ones who are always making a big splash? Or do you value those who are steady, thoughtful, the ones you can always count on?
It's like that saying, still waters run deep. Sometimes the quietest people are the most powerful.
And the most interesting.
Exactly. I feel like by exploring Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff more, we can learn to appreciate those people better, both in fiction and in real life.
For sure. And I think that's a big part of why these two houses resonate so deeply with so many fans. They represent those essential, everyday qualities that we all need to succeed.
They're like the unsung heroes of Hogwarts, you know?
Definitely. It's like Gryffindor and Slytherin might get all the attention, but Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they're the ones who are actually making the world a better place.
Totally. And it makes you think, you know, what about the way Hogwarts itself is structured?
Oh, interesting. You're thinking about the house points.
Yeah. It's always Gryffindor and Slytherin duking it out for that house cup, right?
Right.
And it's like the way points are awarded, it favors those Gryffindor and Slytherin traits we were just talking about. Bravery, daring, cunning. But where are the points for, like, intellectual curiosity?
Good question. Or collaboration. Or, like, just doing a really good job on your charms homework.
Right. Those qualities are just as valuable, but they rarely get the same level of recognition.
It's true. It's almost like the system itself is saying, hey, some students are more important than others based on their house.
Which is so messed up, right?
Yeah.
What are they awarded points for, like, being a good friend or helping someone out who's struggling?
Right. Or, like, coming up with a really innovative solution to a problem in potions class.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine if collaboration was as celebrated as beating someone at Quidditch.
It would definitely be a different Hogwarts, wouldn't it? And maybe a better reflection of the real world, too. Like, in our own lives, should we only value the people who are always winning? Or should we recognize the ones who are making things better for everyone, even if it's behind the scenes?
Totally. This whole deep dive is making me rethink how I see things.
Yeah.
It's like we're so conditioned to think about certain qualities as better that we miss out on all the other amazing stuff that's going on.
It's true. And it makes you wonder, you know, how differently things might work if we changed our perspective. Like, what if we started celebrating those quieter strengths, the ones that don't always get the applause, but are making a real difference?
Totally. Like, remember that whole thing with Harry getting in trouble for using magic outside of school?
Oh, yeah, when he saved Dudley from the Dementors?
Right. It's like he literally gets attacked by these soul-sucking creatures in a Muggle neighborhood, no less, and he defends himself and Dudley.
And the Ministry wants to punish him for it.
Exactly. Because they're so obsessed with appearing strong and in control that they refuse to even acknowledge the fact that Voldemort is back. They'd rather sweep everything under the rug and pretend everything's fine.
It's such a classic example of how those in power can be so blinded by their own narrative that they completely miss the bigger picture.
It's like they were so focused on maintaining control and looking good that they totally missed the real threat.
It makes you wonder how things might have been different if they'd had a bit more of that Ravenclaw curiosity, you know?
Totally. Like, what if they'd actually been willing to investigate, to question their assumptions, to look at the evidence with an open mind? Maybe they would come to a different conclusion.
Yeah, and what if they'd approached the whole situation with a bit more Hufflepuff empathy? Like, instead of dismissing Harry's experience, what if they'd actually believed him and offered him support?
They could have gained a valuable ally in the fight against Voldemort. Instead, they pushed him away, alienated him, and ended up making things worse.
A classic example of how those Gryffindor and Slytherin traits, when taken to an extreme, can actually be detrimental.
Totally. Like, they were so focused on being strong and decisive that they missed the opportunity to do what was actually right and just.
It's like, sometimes the most courageous thing to do is to think critically and question the accepted narrative. And sometimes the most valuable approach is to lead with compassion and believe in those who are often dismissed or overlooked.
Totally. This whole incident really shows how dangerous it can be when you value certain qualities to the exclusion of others.
And it's not just, like, individual decisions either. This whole bias towards certain houses, it kind of seeps into how history is presented in the wizarding world.
Oh, yeah, like A History of Magic by Mathilda Bagshot. Every Hogwarts kid has to read that.
Right. But is it really objective?
That's a good question. It does seem like the whole narrative is very focused on, like, the achievements of famous Gryffindors and Slytherins.
Totally. It's all about battles and duels and political intrigue.
It's exciting, but it's kind of one-sided.
For sure. It's like those are the only stories worth telling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about all the Ravenclaw inventors who came up with those amazing magical objects we see everywhere?
Good point. Or the Hufflepuffs who, like, campaigned for better treatment of house elves or something. I never hear those stories.
Right. It's like their contributions just get erased or something.
It makes you wonder what other amazing stories are out there that we never hear about.
Totally. Like, what if A History of Magic included a chapter on, like, the unsung heroes of magical innovation, or the quiet revolutionaries who changed wizarding society through acts of kindness and perseverance?
Right. That would be amazing. It would totally change how we understand the wizarding world.
And speaking of overlooked figures, what about the founders themselves? Like, everyone knows Godric Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin.
Their names are basically synonymous with Hogwarts?
Exactly. But Rowena Ravenclaw and Helga Hufflepuff.
They're kind of like footnotes.
Totally. Like, we get glimpses of their values through the Sorting Hat and the house descriptions, but their actual stories, their motivations for founding Hogwarts, their relationships with the other founders, that's all kind of mysterious.
It's a shame. Imagine the insights we could gain if we knew more about Rowena Ravenclaw's, like, quest for knowledge or Helga Hufflepuff's dedication to inclusivity.
Right. It's almost like the focus on Gryffindor and Slytherin has overshadowed those other stories.
Yeah.
And that's shaped how we view the houses themselves.
It's subtle, but it's powerful. It makes you think about how much of what we believe about the wizarding world is influenced by these unconscious biases, these stories that favor certain houses and certain values over others.
Absolutely. And it's not just the founders or even A History of Magic. Think about the way certain subjects are viewed at Hogwarts.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Defense Against the Dark Arts, for example.
Right.
That's always seen as the, like, most important subject.
Oh, totally. It's the one everyone wants to be good at.
Exactly. It's associated with danger and excitement and, like, being a hero.
Yeah, all the Aurors come from that class, basically.
Right. But what about charms? Or potions? Or even herbology?
What about them?
They're just as essential to the functioning of the wizarding world, and they require just as much skill and dedication.
Oh, absolutely. Like, without charms, you couldn't levitate a feather.
Exactly. Or brew a potion. Or grow magical ingredients.
Right.
But we don't give them the same respect. It's like we overlook these essential subjects just because they're not as flashy.
I see what you mean. It's almost like those subjects are more Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, you know? Like, they're the ones who are drawn to those fields, who find satisfaction in mastering those less glamorous but equally important skills.
Totally. It makes you think about how we view education in our own world, too.
Yeah.
Are we prioritizing the flashy and exciting over the essential and foundational?
That's a great point. And if we are, what are we missing out on?
Exactly. And speaking of missing out, let's talk about how Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff are portrayed in the fight against Voldemort. Like, they're there, obviously.
Right. They're not just sitting on the sidelines.
But they don't get as much attention as the Gryffindors in the Order of the Phoenix, for instance. But their contributions are still super significant.
Oh, absolutely. I'd even say their strengths are essential to the whole resistance.
Like, think about Dumbledore's army, that student organization that Harry puts together to teach everyone defense against the dark arts.
Oh, yeah, right. A lot of the most dedicated members are Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs.
Exactly. They're the ones who are coming up with strategies and supporting each other. They might not be on the front lines of every battle, but they're the ones who are building the foundation for victory.
That's a great point. It's like they're providing the support structure for the whole movement.
Totally. And sometimes the pen is mightier than the sword, you know? In the fight against Voldemort, Ravenclaw's brains and Hufflepuff's loyalty, they're just as powerful as any spell.
Absolutely. Like, think about Luna Lovegood again. She's not afraid to express her individuality, even when people make fun of her for it.
Right. And she's fiercely loyal to her friends.
She's a true Ravenclaw, a testament to the power of independent thought and loyalty.
And then there's Cedric Diggory. He was kind, compassionate, and utterly dedicated to doing what was right.
Even in the face of danger, he never wavered. And his death, it's a reminder of the price that's often paid by those who choose to stand up for what they believe in.
It's a really powerful message. It makes you think about how we define heroism, you know.
It's not always about being the loudest or the strongest.
Exactly. Sometimes the quietest acts of courage are the most meaningful.
And they often come from the most unexpected places.
Which brings us back to this whole question of why Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff get overlooked, even though they're full of amazing people who are making a real difference.
Right. It's almost like we're conditioned to think of certain houses as better or more important.
Totally. And it's not just the houses, it's the values they represent. We tend to value bravery and ambition over things like intelligence, loyalty, and hard work.
It's like those qualities are seen as less valuable or something.
Right. But in reality, they're just as important.
More important, I'd say. I mean, look at the state of the world. What we need now are people who are willing to think critically, to work together, to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Exactly. We need more Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs.
And we need to start valuing those qualities in ourselves and in others.
Absolutely. It's time to shift the narrative.
So how do we do that? How do we start recognizing and valuing those Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff qualities that are so often overlooked?
I think it starts with awareness. We need to recognize our own biases, the ways in which we've been conditioned to think about certain qualities as more important than others.
Right, like we need to question those assumptions.
Exactly. And once we start doing that, we can start to shift our perspective.
We can start to see the value in different ways of being, different ways of contributing.
We can start celebrating those who embody those often overlooked qualities. It's about recognizing the quiet heroes, the ones who are making a difference without seeking recognition or reward.
It's about valuing intelligence, creativity, hard work, kindness, compassion, all those things that make the world a better place.
It's about creating a society where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute their unique talents. It's a big challenge, but it's one worth taking on.
And it's one that Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs are uniquely equipped to lead.
They're the ones who are thinking outside the box, building bridges, creating a more inclusive and compassionate world.
Exactly. And they're reminding us that true heroism isn't about power or glory. It's about those everyday acts of kindness, intelligence, and loyalty.
It's about making the world a better place, one small step at a time.
And sometimes those small steps are the ones that lead to the biggest changes.
Totally. Like, let's talk about ambition. That's something we often associate with Slytherin, right?
Right, and it's usually portrayed as a bad thing.
Yeah, like ambition always leads to greed and selfishness.
But is that really true? Can't ambition be a force for good?
Good point. Like, think about Hermione Granger. She's super ambitious, but she's also incredibly compassionate and loyal.
Right. She's driven to succeed, but she wants to use her knowledge and skills to make the world a better place.
Exactly. It's not about demonizing ambition. It's about recognizing that it can be a powerful tool for good.
It's about channeling that ambition towards something meaningful, something that benefits everyone.
Let's talk about community for a sec. It's a theme that pops up all over the Harry Potter books.
Oh, for sure. And it's something that both Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff really value.
Like, they're all about collaboration, inclusivity, that sense of belonging.
Totally. Think about Luna Lovegood again. She embraces everyone no matter how different they are.
And Cedric Diggory, he was always willing to stand up for the underdog.
Right, like he was always fighting for fairness and equality.
Exactly. It's like they're constantly reminding us that we're all interconnected, that we need each other.
And that we all have a responsibility to make the world a better place, not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
Totally.
Which is a message that seems particularly relevant these days.
Oh, for sure. There's so much division and conflict in the world. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, like our individual actions don't matter.
But that's where Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff come in. They remind us that even small acts of kindness, of intelligence, of courage can make a difference.
They inspire us to stand up for what we believe in, to fight for justice, to create a world where everyone can thrive.
And that's a message we all need to hear.
Speaking of fighting for what's right, let's talk about problem solving for a minute.
Okay. How do Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff approach problem solving?
Well, they might not always have the, flashiest solutions, They're not always coming up with those big dramatic spells or schemes.
But they're often more thoughtful and more strategic.
Totally. Like Ravenclaws, they're all about research and innovation. They're the ones who are coming up with those creative, outside-the-box solutions.
Right. And Hufflepuffs, they're all about collaboration and building consensus. They want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and that the solution benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It's a pretty powerful combination, actually.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one that we need in our own world.
Totally. Like, to solve those big, complex challenges we're facing, we need people who are willing to think differently, but also to work together.
Right. We need both the brains and the heart.
Exactly.
Speaking of hearts, let's talk about failure for a minute. It's something that everyone experiences, but it's something that our culture often tries to avoid or deny.
Oh, for sure. Like, we're supposed to be perfect all the time.
But Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they have a different perspective.
Yeah, they're all about hard work, perseverance, learning from your mistakes.
Like, think about Luna Lovegood. She's constantly being ridiculed for her beliefs and her way of thinking.
But she never lets it get to her.
Right. She just keeps being herself, keeps pursuing her interests, keeps speaking her truth.
And then there's Cedric Diggory. His death is obviously a tragedy, a reminder that sometimes things just don't go our way, no matter how hard we try.
But it's also a reminder that there's dignity in striving to do what's right, even if we fail.
It's a really important message, especially for young people who are facing so much pressure to succeed all the time.
Absolutely. It's like the Harry Potter books are saying, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to not have all the answers.
What matters is that you keep trying, that you keep learning, and that you never give up on yourself.
Right. Your worth isn't defined by your successes or your failures. It's about who you are, about the choices you make, about the impact you have on the world.
Let's talk about creativity for a bit. It's another one of those things that's often associated with certain houses like Gryffindor and Slytherin.
Right. The brave heroes who come up with those daring plans, or the cunning villains who always seem to be one step ahead.
But Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they have their own unique approach to creativity.
It's more thoughtful, more collaborative, more sustainable in the long run.
Like Ravenclaws, they're always pushing boundaries, experimenting with new ideas, coming up with unconventional solutions.
Right. They're not afraid to question the status quo, to challenge tradition, to imagine new possibilities.
And Hufflepuffs, they're all about creating a supportive environment for creativity to flourish. They're the ones who are encouraging collaboration, celebrating diversity, making sure that everyone has a chance to contribute.
It's a pretty awesome combination, actually. Like, you need both the intellectual spark and that heart-centered inclusivity to really drive innovation.
Absolutely. And it's something we need more of in our own world.
Totally.
Oh, and speaking of things we need more of, let's talk about critical thinking and media literacy for a minute.
Okay. How do those connect to Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff?
Well, think about it. We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information.
Oh, yeah. It's like information overload 24/7.
Exactly. And it's not always easy to tell what's true and what's not, what's reliable and what's not.
Right. It can be really hard to sort through it all.
Which is why critical thinking and media literacy are so important. We need to be able to evaluate sources, to recognize bias, to think for ourselves.
And Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they're kind of like experts in those areas.
Totally. Like Ravenclaws, they're natural skeptics. They're always questioning, always seeking evidence, always challenging assumptions.
Right. They're not just going to take something at face value. They want to understand the why and the how.
Exactly. And Hufflepuffs, they're all about fairness and justice. They're going to be looking at the bigger picture. the impact that information has on others, the potential for harm or bias.
They're reminding us that information is power and that we need to use that power responsibly.
It's a pretty essential combination, especially these days.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Ravenclaw, but I want to spend a few minutes specifically on Hufflepuff.
Okay, what about them?
Well, they often get described as the nice house, the one that's all about kindness and inclusivity.
Right, which is great, but there's more to it than that.
Exactly. Like, yes, they're kind and compassionate, but they're also fiercely loyal and dedicated to what's right.
They're not just passively nice. They're actively working to make the world a better place.
Exactly. They're standing up for the underdog, fighting for equality, promoting justice.
And they're doing it all with this quiet strength, this humble determination that's often overlooked.
It makes you think about Cedric Diggory again.
Right. He was willing to put himself at risk to do what was right.
And Nymphadora Tonks, the Hufflepuff Auror. She fought tirelessly against Voldemort, even when it was dangerous.
They're both such powerful examples of Hufflepuff courage and compassion.
It's a good reminder that true heroism doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it's found in those everyday acts of kindness and integrity.
It's about doing what's right, even when no one's watching.
Let's talk about emotional intelligence for a minute. It's something that's not always valued, especially in a culture that's so focused on logic and reason.
Right, like we're supposed to just suppress our emotions and get on with things.
But being able to understand and manage our emotions, to build healthy relationships, to communicate effectively, those are essential skills.
Oh, absolutely. And I think both Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff have a lot to teach us in those areas.
Totally. Like Ravenclaws, they're such good observers of human nature.
They're always asking questions, listening attentively, trying to understand different perspectives.
Which is so important for building strong relationships.
And Hufflepuffs, they're so good at connecting with people on an emotional level.
They're the ones who are creating safe spaces for open communication, fostering understanding, reminding us that we all need connection and belonging.
It's a pretty powerful combination.
Totally. We need both that intellectual understanding and that emotional intelligence to navigate the complexities of human interaction.
Right. It's about creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the environment.
The environment, okay?
Yeah.
How does that connect to Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff?
Well, we're facing some pretty serious environmental challenges these days.
Oh, absolutely. Climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity, it's a mess out there.
And we need to be thinking about sustainability, about conserving resources, about protecting the planet for future generations.
Right. It's not just about us, it's about the future.
Exactly. And I think Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they have a lot to offer in this area.
Right.
Well, Ravenclaws, they're problem solvers. They're always looking for innovative solutions to complex challenges.
So they'd be the ones coming up with those new technologies, those sustainable practices.
Exactly. And Hufflepuffs, they're all about fairness and justice. And that extends to the environment, too. They're the ones who are advocating for conservation, reminding us that we need to take care of the planet.
It's like they're the ones who are connecting the head and the heart.
Totally. We need both the ingenuity of Ravenclaw and the compassion of Hufflepuff to create a world that's both sustainable and equitable.
It's a great reminder that our actions have consequences and that we all have a responsibility to protect the planet.
Speaking of responsibility, let's talk about leadership for a minute.
Okay. Leadership. How does that fit into our conversation about Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff?
Well, when we think about leaders, we often picture those bold, charismatic figures.
Right, like the ones who are always out in front, giving orders, taking charge.
But Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they have a different style of leadership.
More collaborative, maybe.
Exactly. Like Ravenclaws, they're the ones who are thinking strategically, developing plans, inspiring others to think creatively.
Right, and Hufflepuffs, they're the ones who are building teams, fostering a supportive environment, making sure everyone feels valued.
It's a really powerful combination, actually.
No, totally. And it's something we need more of in our leaders.
Like, we need people who can think critically and solve problems, but also who are compassionate and inclusive.
Right. It's not about power or control. It's about service. It's about empowering others.
Exactly.
And it's about creating a world where everyone can thrive.
In a world that's increasingly focused on practicality and efficiency, it's easy to forget about magic and mystery.
Oh, totally. We get so caught up in the day-to-day grind that we lose sight of the wonder that surrounds us.
Exactly. But Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they remind us to keep that sense of wonder alive.
How so?
Well, Ravenclaws, they're natural explorers. They're always seeking new knowledge, always pushing the boundaries of understanding.
Right. They're the ones who are asking questions, conducting experiments, challenging us to see the world in new ways.
And Hufflepuffs, they're all about appreciating the beauty and complexity of nature.
They're the ones who are teaching us to slow down, to observe, to find joy in the simple things.
It's a really important reminder, especially in a world that's so fast-paced and overwhelming.
Absolutely. We need to reconnect with that sense of wonder, that curiosity, that appreciation for the world around us.
Totally. It's what makes life worth living.
And it's what fuels our creativity and our desire to make the world a better place.
You know, we keep talking about Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff as being underrated, but maybe that's not the right way to think about it.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe it's not that they're underrated, but rather that they embody a different set of values, a different definition of success.
I see what you mean. Like, they're not striving for the same things as Gryffindor and Slytherin.
Exactly. They're not looking for the spotlight. They're not driven by ambition or a thirst for power.
They're motivated by a love of knowledge, a desire for fairness, a commitment to making the world a better place.
And maybe that's why they're so often overlooked, because their contributions are quieter, more subtle.
But that doesn't make them any less important. In fact, I'd say those values are more important now than ever.
Totally. Like the world is facing some serious challenges that require collaboration, compassion, and a willingness to think differently.
And those are precisely the qualities that Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff embody.
So maybe it's time to stop thinking of them as underrated and start recognizing them for what they truly are. The quiet heroes, the unsung champions, the ones who are making a difference without seeking recognition or reward.
Beautifully put. They're the ones who are reminding us that true success lies not in individual achievement, but in creating a world where everyone can thrive.
And that's a message we could all use a little more of these days.
Absolutely. It's a powerful combination and one that's essential to creating effective and ethical leadership.
We need both the intellectual vision of Ravenclaw and the heart-centered inclusivity of Hufflepuff to create leaders who are not only effective, but also compassionate and committed to the well-being of all.
It's a reminder that true leadership is not about power or control, but about service, about empowering others, and about creating a more just and equitable world.
In a society that often prioritizes practicality and efficiency, it's easy to lose sight of the magic and mystery that surrounds us.
Oh, totally. We get so caught up in the day-to-day grind that we lose sight of the wonder that surrounds us.
Exactly. But Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, they remind us to keep that sense of wonder alive.
How so?
Well, Ravenclaws, they're natural explorers. They're always seeking new knowledge, always pushing the boundaries of understanding.
Right. They're the ones who are asking questions, conducting experiments, challenging us to see the world in new ways.
And Hufflepuffs, with their love of all living things and their appreciation for the beauty and complexity of nature, are reminding us to slow down, to observe, to appreciate the wonders that surround us.
They're the ones who are teaching us to connect with the natural world, to find joy in the simple things, and to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the gifts we've been given.
It's a powerful combination, and it's one that's essential to fostering a sense of wonder, curiosity, and appreciation for the world we live in.
We need both the intellectual exploration of Ravenclaw and the heart-centered reverence of Hufflepuff to reconnect with the magic and mystery that surrounds us, and to create a world that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally nourishing.
You know, it strikes me that we often talk about Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff as being underrated, but maybe that's a perspective that needs to shift.
I think you're onto something there. Maybe it's not that they're underrated, but rather that they embody a different set of values, a different definition of success.
Exactly. They're not striving for the same kind of recognition or reward as Gryffindor and Slytherin. Their motivations are different. Their goals are different.
They're not seeking the spotlight. They're not driven by ambition or a thirst for power. They're driven by a love of knowledge, a desire for fairness, a commitment to making the world a better place.
And maybe that's why they're so often overlooked, because their contributions are quieter, more subtle, more focused on the collective good rather than individual achievement.
But that doesn't make them any less important. In fact, I would argue that their values, their way of being in the world, is more essential now than ever.
Absolutely. We're facing so many challenges in our world today, challenges that require collaboration, compassion, creativity, and a willingness to think differently.
And those are precisely the qualities that Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff embody. They're the ones who are building bridges, fostering understanding, and working towards a more just and equitable world.
So maybe it's time we stop thinking of them as underrated and start recognizing them for what they truly are. The quiet heroes, the unsung champions, the ones who are making a difference without seeking recognition or reward.
Beautifully put. They're the ones who are reminding us that true success lies not in individual achievement, but in creating a world where everyone can thrive.
And that's a message we could all benefit from hearing.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the unsung heroes of Hogwarts, what final thoughts do you want to leave our listeners with?
The Harry Potter story, while fictional, offers us a powerful reflection of our own world and the values we hold dear. It challenges us to question our assumptions about what constitutes success, about what qualities are truly important, and about the kind of world we want to create.
Beautifully said. It reminds us that true strength lies not in power or dominance, but in compassion, in collaboration, in using our intellect and our empathy to make the world a better place.
And it reminds us that we all have a role to play in this journey, whether we're a brave Gryffindor, a cunning Slytherin, a wise Ravenclaw, or a loyal Hufflepuff. We all have something unique to offer, and we're stronger when we work together.
So as you go back out into the world, I encourage you to ponder this. What are the Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff qualities that you possess? How can you use those strengths to make a positive impact on your community, on the world around you? Because those often overlooked qualities, that quiet strength, that unwavering kindness, those are the things that will truly change the world.
This deep dive has reminded us that true greatness comes in many forms, and that sometimes the quietest voices make the most profound impact. All right, everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep into something today. Something pretty iconic in the Harry Potter world. Sorting Hat.
Oh, yeah.
This magical hat decides your fate at Hogwarts. And we've all, sure we've all thought about what house we would be in.
Absolutely.
But what if the hat got it wrong?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so today we're going to explore some of those iconic Sorting Hat moments and ask, could some characters have found a different home at Hogwarts?
It's very possible.
We're going to look at excerpts from the books as well as articles from Wizarding World to help us with this.
Yeah, because, a sorting hat claims to look at your potential and your core values.
Right.
But what happens when a student embodies traits from multiple houses? Does the hat prioritize one over the other?
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right in. Let's talk about Hermione Granger.
Okay.
Brave, loyal, always ready to stand up for her friends. A true Gryffindor, right?
She's the definition of Gryffindor courage.
Right.
But let's not forget her defining characteristic, I would say.
Okay.
Her insatiable thirst for knowledge.
Oh, yeah?
Remember when she tells Ron, books and cleverness, they're more important things, friendship and bravery.
Right.
She values knowledge and bravery equally.
You're right. And it's not just her love for books. She's brilliant, logical, a stickler for rules.
Yeah.
Classic Ravenclaw traits, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
In Chamber of Secrets, she brews Polyjuice Potion.
Yeah.
A complex and risky endeavor. And she's driven by her pursuit of knowledge.
Right.
It's a testament to her Ravenclaw ingenuity.
It really is.
And who could forget her Time Turner adventures in Prisoner of Azkaban?
Oh, wow.
Bending the rules of time itself for academic pursuits.
Wow.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if those Ravenclaw traits could have landed her in a different house.
It's a fascinating question because she embodies both houses so well. But even with her Ravenclaw side, her choices, particularly in dangerous situations, often reflect a deep-seated Gryffindor courage and a sense of justice.
You've got a point. Her actions, perhaps more than her aptitude, solidify her place in Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about Harry Potter.
Okay.
The Sorting Hat hesitated when sorting him, right?
Right.
I've always wondered if it was sensing Harry's own qualities or the lingering presence of Voldemort within him.
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
It's almost like trying to decipher a blurry crystal ball.
Right.
And remember, Harry, Voldemort is a parcel myth.
Yeah.
A rare magical ability to speak to snakes.
Right.
And he can access the sword of Gryffindor.
Yeah.
A weapon said to appear only to true Gryffindors.
Hold on now. For our listeners who might not remember all the details,
Sure.
Could you explain what a parselmouth is and why the sword of Gryffindor is so important?
Of course. Being a parselmouth is extremely rare and often associated with dark magic.
Right.
Making it a potential mark of a Slytherin.
Okay. And the sword of Gryffindor is a powerful magical weapon that only a true Gryffindor can wield.
Wow.
Dumbledore himself says so. It's a magical litmus test for Gryffindor values.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. It makes that moment in Chamber of Secrets even more significant when Harry speaks Parseltongue to open the chamber.
Yes.
Everyone was terrified, especially Ron and his family.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they saw a glimpse of Slytherin in him.
Yeah, that scene perfectly captures the inner conflict and the duality within Harry.
Right.
He possesses this ability linked to Voldemort and Slytherin.
Yeah.
Yet he wields the Gryffindor sword.
Right.
It's a constant push and pull between light and dark bravery and a potential for something more cunning, which we often see in his plans with Ron and Hermione.
You're absolutely right. He displays incredible bravery, but there's also ambition and cunning in his strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Those could be seen as Slytherin traits, too.
Right.
So what does this all mean? Could Harry have ended up in Slytherin if Voldemort hadn't been a factor? Right.
If the Sorting Hat had purely focused on his potential, would it have chosen differently?
That's the million-galleon question.
Right.
But it's important to remember that the Sorting Hat doesn't just see potential, it also sees choices.
Right.
Even with Voldemort's influence, Harry ultimately chose to reject the darkness and embrace Gryffindor values. His choices define his path.
I never thought about it that way. So even with the possibility of a Slytherin Harry, his choices ultimately led him to Gryffindor.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the books layer these complex themes together.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a concept that embodies this complexity even further.
Okay.
Hat stalls.
Hat skull.
These are rare instances where the Sorting Hat takes an unusually long time to decide a student's house,
Right.
suggesting that they might possess qualities that could fit in multiple houses.
So do hat stalls suggest the Sorting Hat can be wrong, or are they simply highlighting the complexities of human nature?
That is a fantastic question, and perhaps the heart of this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
Maybe hat stalls are the hat's way of acknowledging that sometimes even magic struggles to define us.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about the hat being right or wrong, but about recognizing that people are complex. And categorizing them isn't always easy.
Exactly. And a perfect example of this is Neville Longbottom.
Okay.
Neville Longbottom. He's a fantastic example of a hat stall. Initially, he seemed destined for Hufflepuff.
Oh, yeah.
Known for their loyalty and their hard work.
He did seem like a Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Always kind of a bit timid, but ultimately loyal to his friends.
Exactly. But remember that pivotal moment in Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah.
He stands up to his friends, even Harry, to stop them from breaking the rules and risking their safety.
Yeah.
It's a display of incredible courage.
Yeah.
Something we typically associate with Gryffindor.
You're right. That scene completely changes our perception of Neville.
Yeah.
He's not just a kind Hufflepuff. He's got that Gryffindor bravery inside him, too.
That's the beauty of Neville's character arc.
Right.
He embodies both houses.
Yeah.
He's the living embodiment of a hat stall, proving that people are multifaceted and can't always be put into neat little boxes.
I love that. Neville shows us that hat stalls aren't about the hat being wrong, but rather about recognizing that some people possess qualities that could fit in multiple houses. It's like the hat is saying, hey, you've got potential in both. It's your choices that will determine your path.
Exactly. It brings us back to that central question. Do our choices shape who we are, or are we predetermined by our inherent qualities?
It's a tricky question, right? It makes me think of Sirius Black.
Oh.
He's sorted into Gryffindor.
You're right.
Known for bravery and chivalry. But remember his family. The Blacks were practically synonymous with Slytherin.
Oh, absolutely. The Blacks were all about pure blood supremacy and dark magic.
Right.
They even have that creepy family tapestry with all the members who were disinherited for not following the pure blood mania.
Yeah. Sirius was like the black sheep of the family, totally rebelling against their dark legacy. He chose a different path, embracing Gryffindor values.
Precisely. He chose Gryffindor. He actively went against everything his family stood for, choosing justice and loyalty over prejudice and power.
But wasn't he sorted into Gryffindor before his rebellion? Did the hat really see that coming? Or was there something inherently Gryffindor about him, even as a young boy, that made him resist his family's influence?
Now, that's a brilliant point. Maybe the hat did sense that rebellious spirit, that yearning for something different. Even before Sirius consciously made those choices. Or perhaps there was an innate Gryffindor spark within him that eventually led him to defy his family's expectations.
This is getting really interesting. So maybe it's not just about nature or nurture, but a combination of both. You've got this inherent potential, but your choices and experiences also play a role in shaping who you become.
It's like a complex recipe, isn't it?
Right.
A blend of ingredients that interact and change over time. And that leads us to another fascinating case study. Draco Malfoy.
Oh, Draco. Raised in a family steeped in Slytherin traditions.
Right.
You can't get much more Slytherin than the Malfoys.
Oh, yeah.
Pure blood mania. A thirst for power. Even their name Malfoy sounds like bad faith in French.
Right. They're like the poster family for Slytherin.
Right.
And Draco, from a young age, is immersed in that world.
Yeah.
It shapes his beliefs, his actions. He practically embodies Slytherin values even before the Sorting Hat touches his head.
But wouldn't that make the Sorting Hat's decision a bit predetermined?
Right.
Like if you're raised in a certain way, are you destined to follow that path?
Right.
It seems almost unfair, doesn't it?
That's the debate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture.
Right.
Do we have free will?
Right.
Or are we products of our environment? Does the Sorting Hat see our true selves?
Yeah.
Or is it influenced by the experiences that have molded us?
It's a bit like a chicken or the egg scenario, right? Which came first? The inherent Slytherin qualities or the upbringing that reinforced them?
Yeah.
Did Draco have a choice?
Right.
Or was he destined to be a Slytherin from the moment he was born?
It's a question that philosophers have debated for centuries.
Yeah.
And it's even more complicated when you throw magic into the mix.
Oh.
The Sorting Hat adds another layer of complexity to the whole debate.
It really does. And with cases like Draco's, where the influence of upbringing is so strong, it makes you question whether the Sorting Hat is truly objective.
It's a valid concern. It raises the issue of bias, whether conscious or unconscious. Even a magical artifact might be susceptible to the prejudices of the world it exists in.
That's a thought-provoking idea. Maybe even the Sorting Hat isn't immune to the influences of its creators and the society it serves.
Exactly. And perhaps that's where the importance of critical thinking comes in. We can't just blindly accept the Sorting Hat's decisions, or any labels for that matter.
I like that. We have to question. To challenge the status quo, even in a magical world. It's like those Pottermore quizzes that sort you into a house.
Yeah.
They can be fun, but they're just a snapshot of who we are at a specific moment.
Right.
We can't let a quiz or even the Sorting Hat define us.
You're absolutely right. And this brings us back to the concept of hat stalls.
Okay.
They embody that gray area. Those instances when even the hat seems to recognize that a person's potential isn't always clear-cut. Maybe hat stalls are the hat's way of saying, hey, I'm not always sure this one's got layers.
Ooh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Hat stalls as a symbol of the complexity of human nature. They challenged the idea of rigid categorization. Reminding us that we're all a mix of different traits and potentials.
Precisely. Hat stalls remind us that growth is a process. We're constantly evolving, and sometimes it takes time, even for a magical hat, to see where we truly belong.
This has been so insightful. We've explored examples like Hermione, whose choices solidify her place in Gryffindor despite her Ravenclaw intellect. We've delved into the complexities of Harry sorting with the shadow of Voldemort and the duality of his nature. And we've unpacked the fascinating cases of Sirius and Draco, highlighting the interplay of choice, upbringing, and the potential for bias, even within a magical system.
And through it all, we've seen how hat stalls challenge the very notion of categorization.
Right.
Reminding us that human beings are far more complex than any single label can define.
So what does this all mean for our listeners as we continue our deep dive in the next part? Keep in mind those moments in your own life where you've had to make choices, when you've defied expectations, or maybe even surprised yourself.
Right.
Because ultimately, it's our choices that reveal who we truly are.
And sometimes, even the most ancient and magical of hats might need a second look to truly understand the magic within each of us.
You know, thinking about hat stalls, it's almost like the Sorting Hat is giving those students a choice. Like it's saying, hey, you've got the potential for greatness in multiple houses. Which path will you choose?
That's a fascinating perspective. It almost echoes that line from McGonagall in Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I think we sort too soon.
Right.
It's as if the hat itself acknowledges its limitations.
Yeah.
The fact that it can't always predict the twists and turns of a person's life.
And it makes you wonder about the houses themselves. Like you get sorted into Gryffindor and suddenly you're surrounded by all these brave, daring individuals.
Yeah.
It could push you to be your best self.
Right.
To live up to those ideals.
But it could also create a sense of pressure.
Right.
An expectation to conform to a certain mold.
Yeah.
What happens when a Gryffindor has a moment of weakness or doubt?
Right.
Does that make them lack a Gryffindor?
It's like those internal conflicts we all face. Maybe you're a Gryffindor at heart, but you also have a touch of Slytherin ambition.
Right.
Or you're a Ravenclaw who secretly craves that Hufflepuff sense of belonging.
It's those inner contradictions that make us human, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And perhaps the Sorting Hat, for all its magic, can only see a snapshot of who we are at a given moment.
Right.
It can't predict how we'll evolve, how our choices will shape us.
So maybe the real magic isn't about the Sorting Hat at all. It's about the choices we make. The paths we forge for ourselves.
Yeah.
Regardless of where we started.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The Sorting Hat is a symbol, a ritual that kicks off our journey at Hogwarts.
Right.
But it's up to each individual to define their own adventure.
Yeah.
To embrace the beautiful complexity within themselves.
That's such a powerful message for our listeners. Don't let a hat or anyone else put you in a box.
Right.
You have the power to be brave, kind, ambitious, and curious all at the same time.
Absolutely. We are more than the sum of our parts.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the ultimate takeaway from our deep dive into the Sorting Hat.
Yeah.
To embrace the multitude of possibilities that lie within each of us.
So as you go about your day, dear listener, think about those moments when you've defied expectations. When you've embraced a side of yourself that surprised even you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what makes life interesting, isn't it?
It really is.
It's not about fitting neatly into a category. But about celebrating the messy, ever-evolving journey of being human.
And that is the real magic we can all carry within us, whether we've worn the Sorting Hat or not.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Hogwarts. And keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep discovering the magic within yourselves. Until next time.